Siobhan. I'm the outreach coordinator with the Kingston Food Co-op, and this is our second session of our summer deep dive series. And today I have an amazing guest with me. I'll allow you to introduce yourself.
My name is Tyler. I use he, him pronouns. I'm here in the capacity of food justice and Black Liberation Freedom Fellowship organizer, working with Rise Up Kingston and Success Stories programs.
Thank you so much. Thanks for being with us, Tyler. I'm really excited to have you here. Well, I guess we'll just jump right in. And oh, by the way, I didn't mention my pronouns, but I use she, her pronouns. Just wanted to throw that in there. Tyler, can you tell us about how you began doing food justice work?
Yeah, and I gotta say, what up, NO?
Is NO here?
I see NO.
NO, hey NO.
How I began doing food justice work. So it started, I was managing a farmer's market, and I was a new father too, so my kids were young. I have triplets. There were things that weren't settling right with the lack of, we'll just say, like diversity and inclusion in the scene. So I noticed that my mind was changing. My thoughts were different around how food is grown and distributed and acquired in our country. And then COVID hit, so my job just changed. It was kind of a very natural and organic shift in terms of it went from just managing farmers market to working directly with farmers and organizing around getting food places to people who were in isolation or in quarantine. Farmers market was shut down for a while, so we were like working with school districts and different direct service organizations. And it kind of just happened from there. It was like around the time where mutual aid everywhere was becoming more and more of an active presence in community. So I just found myself, I guess doesn't quite do it justice. I began like volunteering that way too. And my role was just around food, all things food. So what happened with that?
That's awesome. Just out of curiosity, would you say that like COVID and like the effects of COVID or being a dad or like the combination of that kind of changed your perception of like food and distribution and access within your work? Or like, I guess I want to know which one weighed heavier on you in terms of like how you kind of looked at your job and like the wider food system overall.
That's a good question. I think in my, like when you ask that, what comes up in my mind is I was already thinking about food and like how we acquire it and how, at the time I didn't know anything about growing things and didn't know where half the food I was eating came from. So this has been a long time coming. There's been interest in that pretty much like through my 20s. And then kind of lost in the direction of how I implement these things. And Mr. Floyd was murdered, everyone was marching, and my sister, I felt bad, I felt irresponsible being out. My kids had COVID, so they were like better at the time, but I was sick, I didn't want to get sick. And my sister was like, well, one, you're doing the movement work by raising Black boys, and two, revolutionaries need to eat. So then I was like, oh, right. What's up with my food system? How can I be a part of creating a food system that I want my kids and my grandkids and their grandkids and your grandkids to, eat off of?
Right. It's bigger than like just about what affects us right here, right now.
Right, and food affects us right here, right now.
True.
So it's like bigger than how it affects all these systems. It's like how we feel, how our energy is derived, how we process emotions. It's all influenced by what we're putting in our body.
Totally, it's all connected. Um, my next question is, what does food sovereignty mean to you?
Food sovereignty, to me, means that there is a food system where the people of the land, of the community, have control and power over what food's grown, how it's distributed, and how they acquire it.
Mm-hmm.
So food freedom,
Mm-hmm.
I guess sovereignty is synonymous with freedom, but that kind of hits different when I hear it. Food freedom. What would it look like if our community, if the food system was free? Maybe that would mean there are food forests and there is accessible food to everyone who needs it. It feels like a human right to me to be able to eat. And mirroring the system, or like influenced and inspired by the food system that we are a part of, food sovereignty looks like this is what culturally we want to eat.
Mm-hmm.
This is where it's grown and this is how it's distributed. Big visions, food sovereignty to me looks like there are people who know how to grow the food, there are people that need food, and we share.
I really like that that you swapping the word sovereignty for freedom, because number one, I always have a hard time spelling the word sovereignty. I can like never get it right. And I feel like I knew what the word meant, but when you say food freedom, it just opens so many like ideas of what our food system could be. And I guess like, I don't know, a basic understanding of like food sovereignty is just like having a sense of autonomy in the food.
Absolutely.
In terms of like what food we grow, like you said, how it's acquired, and access and all of that. But thank you for opening my eyes to that food freedom. I feel like I have to like get the wheel turning, or like get the gears turning now, because like, what would our world look like if food freedom was a basic human right, as it should be, because we need food to live. How has your understanding of food justice and food sovereignty changed since beginning this work?
Deeply. I don't think I'd even heard the phrase food I know I hadn't heard the phrase food sovereignty before this work. I've been privileged to be turned on to a lot of different forms of education and become aware of folks like up at Soul Fire Farm and the work that they're doing. That has been a huge influence.
Absolutely.
All of that has changed since I've been doing this work. Through them, I heard about like folks in the South and our ancestors and elders that have been doing this work. All of that's changed since I started doing this work, since I became a part of it. Food justice is the same thing could be said. It was just like in my heart and my gut, it's like this so-called justice system that we have ain't it, and like things ain't working. So food was just a part of like this great injustice, but I didn't know much about details. I certainly didn't know anything about growing, and I had friends that grew food, but it was almost as if they were talking to me in a different language. You know, I didn't grow food. So completely is how my understanding of these things have changed. Hey, Katie.
Hey, Katie. I really, what you said about like, I guess, being spoken to in a different language in terms of like growing food, really resonated with me, because I feel like for so many of us, like there's such a huge disconnect between us and food, and it really shouldn't be that way.
No. Well, it was intentional. I mean, our ancestors were stolen from their land and brought to this land for their agricultural abilities. So our ancestors survived because they knew how to grow food when they came to this land.
Right.
And then folks were like pushed from the south, the great migration. It wasn't just like, oh, let's go up north. There was great injustices in farming down there, and folks had to flee to be safe. So food sovereignty, back to food sovereignty. Like another phrase that I didn't know about is like food apartheid.
Right.
Systems that been created in a way where there is a struggle for folks just to eat, and a part of that struggle it includes not offering not maintaining the freedom to acquire the knowledge to grow food, like intentionally taking these things away. I mean, a very obvious way that shows up these days is there ain't no food growing classes in public school.
Right.
You know, there's not, these things aren't accessible.
This is a question from Tiffany. How do you think we can be sure to honor the local elders and ancestors from this local area in doing the work around food justice in Kingston? Good question, Tiffany.
It is a great question, Tiffany. I think whatever the local elders want, that is the work that we do, to be shaped and led by people that are from this land, impacted, marginalized folks from the land, of the land. So I feel like it's our responsibility to build these relationships with people, to hear their needs, hear their concerns, hear their voices, hear their stories, hear their laughs, hear their joy. And that's where our work is derived.
That was a good question and great answer, Tyler. Thank you. What are your goals for this work in Kingston around food justice and food sovereignty?
That's a good question. It feels like my greatest goal is to get to know the people, really develop relationships where there's trust, and I can use my seat of privilege to do the work that folks feel needs to be done for their quality of life to be better, for folks to have more access to food, to feel better in their body, to feel more secure in having food available. So my greatest goal is being a part of building community. You know, recognizing my privilege of being employed to do that, and that's primarily the people.
That's a good point. That's a really good point. I'm just gonna quickly shut the door.
Okay. I'll just look at people here. I think this is the first time I've ever been live on any social media situation.
Doing great.
Thanks.
And just to cap on the last point that you made, like, food is something that that connects us all, and that's easy to bring. Not easy. I don't want to use that word, but like, we all share a love for food in some way. So it's a good bridge, I think, between the work and your intention to build relationships and community, and like centering it around food. I think is really awesome.
And even for those of us who don't love food, you know, there's like people out here don't love food, but food, we all have in common a relationship to food, whether or not we love it, whether or not we have some sort of struggle with something that makes us not love it, whether or not we have some sort of dietary restriction that's like food is a drag, we have it in common. And how it's acquired and what is acquired is something that I feel is a connecting point. And just like traditionally in human, thank you, like humanity has like gathered around food. There's circles, there's big long communal tables, there's kitchens where children are running around and elders are telling stories. So food does bring people together.
And thank you also for recognizing that, because I see where even in that comment that I made, like, that is coming from a place of privilege as somebody who, like, you know, I can access the foods that I want and without like dietary restrictions or troubles in that way. But for a lot of people, acquiring food can be a source of stress. They don't know where their next meal is coming from, or they're struggling to feed their kids, or like you
eating
said,
disorders.
yeah, eating disorders. So thank you for pointing that out, because it's just rolled off the tongue and I didn't even think about that. But one thing we do all have in common is that I think a need for food or nutrients and some relationship with food is different for all of us. So just recognizing that and highlighting that. Thank you for that. Could you tell us about the Black Liberation Project that you're leading through Rise Up Kingston? And I feel like there might be part of the name of that missing, so feel free to elaborate, but can you share with us a little bit about that?
Yeah, it's a fellowship called Black Liberation Freedom Fellowship.
Okay.
This fellowship is in collaboration with an organization based out of California called Success Stories.
Okay.
Success Stories started in prison, teaching feminist programming, a feminist curriculum amongst each other while incarcerated. So the fellowship was created to help build and heal relationships between cisgender Black men and women, non-binary folks, amongst each other, and heal ourselves. We've all been influenced and conditioned by our society, which very much is one of patriarchy and white supremacy and capitalism, imperialism, and these are all things that I've learned from Bell Hooks, who the Success Stories program is largely influenced by Bell Hooks and the will to change. So the fellowship, there are 2 phases. We're getting ready to start cohort 2. I had the privilege of being a part of cohort 1. It's a paid fellowship, so you get paid to do this work. In phase 1, you go through the 12-week Success Stories curriculum, so it's 2 hours a day, 1 day a week for 12 weeks.
Okay.
And we also read a book called We Real Cool by Bell Hooks. That's a 1-hour session. So we are on Zoom for a total of 3 hours, and then there's 2 other hours throughout the week that you can read the book and prepare and reflect or do whatever one wants to do with this information. Phase 2, we go through facilitation training led by this beautiful fella named Manny Thomas III, who's the co-director at Success Stories. And we read All About Love by Bell Hooks.
Oh.
So in going through Success Stories, everyone that graduates becomes a part of Success Stories alumni program, which is a very special community full of folks who have gone through Success Stories program, most of whom went through the program and while incarcerated. So as someone who has had the privilege of not being incarcerated, when thinking about like transformative justice, like this is a very common phrase these days. Through Success Stories, I've had the honor of being with people who are living a life that has been transformed. It became for me something that is not only beautiful and amazing in theory, but like in practice. So the fellowship is doing that work. These folks, these people have committed to undoing conditions that have been harmful and relearning ways so that there is less harm caused. So that's the fellowship in a nutshell.
That's awesome. I'm curious if that's something that you said it started in California and they were kind of instituting it in prisons, right? But has the program expanded to be offered to like schools or before people reach the point of like being incarcerated to do that work?
Absolutely. That's thanks for bringing that up. It is offered in schools. It's offered in like transitional spaces. It's offered in rehab spaces. We actually gave a talk in Ossining High School.
Sweet.
Manny led that one, a conversation around patriarchy and toxic masculinity. we've had meetings with several organizations. There's a lot to come. Part of my role is seeing how we can engage with folks in New York. So hopefully, in a month or two, I'll have like a list of all these places that aren't prisons. And there are also correspondence courses where COVID made it so folks couldn't go in and out of prison to offer. They weren't having programming, and prisons were being locked down, and a lot of people were getting sick in there. So now the course is offered through writing. It was just maybe yesterday or sometime earlier this week. The program has been developed for women.
Oh wow!
So the pilot for that is underway.
That's awesome.
There's a lot developing. It's a really beautiful thing. There's a documentary called The Feminist on Sublock Y that CNN filmed. And if there's time, I suggest it. It's a really beautiful one. The Feminist on Sublock Y.
The Feminist on Sublock Y. Sublock Y. Definitely want to check that out. I think that's really great. That's really cool. So part of your work will be in like bringing this to New York and like, I don't know, maybe doing pilots or like using the existing model, but just kind of bringing it to new spaces.
Definitely using the existing model, bringing it to spaces here, and organizing the fellowship. So the fellowship is the part of my work that is very much in collaboration with Rise Up. Rise Up, in collaboration with Newburgh LGBTQ+ Center, started the fellowship, and now I have been put in a position to help organize it and facilitate some things. Outside of that, working to see where success stories fits. For example, for kids in school who may be suspended, or in Kingston City School District, they don't use the term expelled, they say long-term suspension.
Okay.
In like abolitionist mind, instead of just getting rid of people, let's bring them in and see how we can address, how we can like listen and share our own stories of shifting from a place of being harmful to like healing. So it's a dream of mine to get our programming into the school district and see how we can work with kids.
I think I'm like really excited to see where this project goes, because I feel like our society is just like extremely punitive, and we don't always consider like the harm that's done when we exclude people for a behavior that like we deem as not acceptable, but like pushing people away only makes it worse, when really people need to be brought closer to I guess, I don't know, I don't like using the word harm, but like, for less harm to be done, we don't need to like keep pushing people away, we need to bring them closer. And also just like, I like the idea of reaching people, young people, because those are the years when we're creating our habits and our ideas and like understanding of the world. So if we can reshape it then we're cultivating like humans with healthy mindsets and behaviors and patterns, and you get it.
Well, that's real though, and for me, it's like think about what does community look like? What do our people look like in the world when I'm no longer here, when my kids have kids and their kids have kids? And it's a beautiful thought to think that it's possible to create conditions to be a part of a community where everyone feels comfortable to live to their fullest abilities, to where they can thrive and feel their talents and create their art, cook the food they want to cook, and smile at who they want to smile at, and without being speaking from like the work that I'm doing with cisgendered men, without thinking like the makings of me being a man is how much money I got, how many girls I got, or how easy it would be for me to beat somebody up, like the possibility of being violent, like being emotionless, like that is what, those are like the markings of a man these days. So without these things, like relearning those things and reshaping what output would be like without those conditions, that to me is will be a beautiful world.
Right. Yeah, I think you hit the nail right on the head. But like, you have to change your input in order to change your output. So changing that is so like, it's so critical for I guess just reworking what I don't want to use the word like masculinity or manhood, but like just like reshifting what that is, and not like demonizing things like having emotions or maybe not having those like kind of things that you mentioned, like not equating your net worth with your self-worth.
Right. And it's not just masculinity. There's nothing inherently toxic about masculinity, but there are all these conditions that, like Bell Hooks likes to break it down as, like, there's white supremacy that shapes masculinity. There's capitalism that shapes masculinity. Give me the money. Yeah. Imperialism that shapes masculinity. Like, let me dominate this space. This is my land now. There's patriarchy that shapes masculinity, where men get paid more than women, where femininity is viewed as like weaker than masculinity. There's all of these things that are like, we're inundated by influences from all of these things all the time. So there is input that there is no way we can stop. This is where like community comes in. This is where I fell in love with success stories. That there is like a community working actively, and there are several. It's not only success stories. I was just fortunate enough to develop relationships with these people, but it is a community that offers an alternative to the way our society interacts, the way we as men interact. You know, it creates a space where we can be our full emotional selves, and we can be vulnerable, and that in turn allows for folks to feel more whole and thrive.
Well, I definitely want to like know how we can support this work, because I think it's really amazing, and I think even just getting folks thinking about like these things that like affect us in every area of life, but we don't necessarily think about, I think is a really good start. So thank you so much for sharing what you're working on. I think it's really awesome, and I'm really excited.
You can follow success story stuff at Prison Feminism.
At Prison Feminism on Instagram,
TikTok, Facebook.
Oh, sweet.
Everything.
They're all over. Nice. I guess just to branch off from what we were talking about, what encourages you to keep going in this work, and whether like you can touch on success stories and the Black Liberation Fellowship or food justice or whatever you like. But
I feel like I have a cheat code for this question. It's like what encourages, not just this work, but what encourages me to like wake up and I'm like, all right, I'm gonna go stretch and brush my teeth and like have a great day with my kids. I got 3 beautiful babies that encourage a discipline, that encourage my actions to work in some sort of way to manifest well-being. So that just like ripples to work, you know, like I got kids and I feel like it's my responsibility to be an active role in working towards a world that they can grow up in.
And that they can thrive in. Yeah. That's awesome. What is it like doing this work that I imagine this probably feels pretty heavy sometimes, right? Like, and being a dad at the same time.
Well, they don't know anything about anything being heavy. They're just like, Dada! Dada! And smiles and stuff. So it helps put things in perspective. You know, like I get overwhelmed and things get stressful. And it's like, here is this precious human life full of joy and curiosity and exploration. So we were all like that, you know, we were all these little seeds. It encourages a movement. It encourages movement for sure.
That's awesome. And probably like brings a little bit of balance, right? It just
brings a lot of joy and playful vibes for sure.
Yeah. What have been the biggest challenges to feeling successful in this work for you?
The biggest. COVID certainly made things hard. It's been hard to like connect with people. Zoom works to a certain extent, but it's not the same as being with people. There's literally not a connection outside of the internet connection.
Right.
So that's like a challenge in community organizing. It's different than like, what's up, brother? What's up, sister? What's up, folk? Like, how are you? It's like, hey, docs in the chat.
Yeah. Yeah, I can relate. Anything else that's like kind of impacted feeling successful in the work you're doing?
I think there's like individuality that affects things too, like just interpersonal challenges or I've had a lot of transitions, so there is a challenge in working and aspiring to work for the people, have it be led by the people, and not finding ways to like feed myself, like feed my soul, and keep a work-life balance, or even just like making time to do things that are fun. I don't really like to use that, but things that are fulfilling.
That's a better way to put it. I can understand that. Yeah, and between like doing food justice stuff and also fellowship work and like raising kids, that's a lot. That's a lot to juggle.
Yeah.
Anybody just looking for questions? On the flip side, what has been the most rewarding part of your work?
It's funny. It's also the most rewarding is like the beautiful community that I'm surrounded by. I have had been very fortunate in getting to meet people and have met several people in person and developed friendships, and my kids have met people's kids. Like I get hooked up with a CSA share from I got good food. It's just I feel really privileged and really blessed by the universe to have connections like I do right now.
Yeah, I think you're definitely in good hands in this community and doing good work. So it's great to have you part of this.
Thank you.
We like talked for so many months over Zoom, and now we're like finally working side by side. So it's really great. Can you share how more people can be involved in this work?
Folks can come to meetings, if that's the thing. KEFC, the Kingston Emergency Food Collaborative, the system change meetings, or even the general meetings are open to the community. Folks are welcome to reach out to me, Tyler at riseupkingston.org, and we can have a one-on-one. And there's food justice meetings that we facilitate through Rise Up. We can open that space. Or we can just talk and hear about like the needs and desires, and that's doing the work. Like share what do you need, what do you want, like what can we put energy towards.
I want to make space for if anybody that's watching or listening has a question they want to type for Tyler. Be looking out for them in the next couple seconds. But Thank you so much, Tyler. This was
You
really,
sure?
really great.
It's been a pleasure.
Learned a lot. Any questions, anybody? Well, like Tyler said, you can reach him at Tyler, Tyler, at riseupkingston.org, right?
That's right.
And can also play back this live if you missed it. Oh, Katie said, what's your favorite food?
Ooh, so many favorite foods. My birthday is coming up, and last night there was a conversation about like, well, what do you want on your birthday? It was like sweet potato pie.
Ooh, love a good sweet potato pie.
Sweet potato pie. I don't know if it's my favorite food, but it's one of them. I got so many favorite foods. I love food. I feel very privileged to have the relationship that I have with food. I love food.
Well, if you're
I love
ever
chickpeas.
Oh God, yeah, chickpeas are the best. I remember in like 2nd grade, I told my my teacher that I hated chickpeas, and she laughed at me, and now I get it.
What's your beef with chickpeas?
I don't know. I don't think I even tried them. I think I just said I didn't like them. But now I'm like, I love them. I can't get enough of them. Also, if you're ever like on the go and you just have to have sweet potato pie, like right now, Kennedy's makes a really good sweet potato pie. And then like
personal pie.
Yeah.
Nice.
It's dangerous. You'll like get addicted. But thank you so much, Tyler.
Thank you.
I was looking to see if there's any more questions, but I think that's it for now.
Cool.
Thanks, everyone. And oh, Tiffany said Kennedy's is the best. She knows. Yeah,
what's up, Tiffany.
They have really good sweet potato pie. Well, I appreciate you spending time with us today and answering my questions and everyone else's questions. And we'll talk soon.
Sweet.
Bye.
Peace, y'all.
Are you sure? I never know how to actually end the live. Finish. Okay. Bye.